Hey there, folks. Welcome to another edition of A Giant Bearded Face Talks About What He Watches on Netflix. Today I just watched a special about what we're learning about the Neanderthals from the genome, analyzing their genome, which was not an easy thing to get, and comparing it to our own. And it turns out that we've all got a little bit of Neanderthal in us. That's not that big of a surprise, because of course, obviously, if you are separate offshoots from the same root on the evolutionary tree, one could say that all your genetic data is going to be the same up until the point where you diverged. The bombshell is that we don't all have the same amount of Neanderthal in us. If you're a European or an Asian, you have like between 2 to 4%. No, wait. You have a 1 or 2% difference. You have 1 or 2% more Neanderthal in you than if you're from Africa. Which is fascinating, actually. And it makes sense, because we evolved in Africa, and then we came up into Europe, where the Neanderthals already were, and then, spread across Europe and into Asia. So, all of this led to the conclusion that we now have proof of the theory that I first read back in the 80s, that we didn't slaughter the Neanderthals or take all their game or anything like that. We just outbred them. We intermingled, and there was like 10 times more of us. And so they simply, their genetic contribution simply got lost in the genetic contributions of, 10, the vast majority of modern human beings, Homo sapiens. This is the theory that's always made sense to me, so it's good to have it confirmed. Though it does mean that we have to imagine a lot of our ancestors fucking humping Neanderthals, which is a bit of a freaky thing when you think about it. With their brow ridges and their forward thrusting jaws and things like that. But, back in the old days, people were probably a little less fussy and a little less, about the appearance and more about, can you skin a boar? There's also a lot of evidence that the Neanderthals were not nearly as primitive as we thought they were. People made a whole bunch of assumptions based on a very poor understanding of how the brain works and what's important for cognitive capacity. Just based on the skulls that they found way back in the 1850. And it fit into a kind of a racist narrative of one race being superior and just, smarter, faster, whatever, and just slaughtering the other for getting in their way. This was still the age of imperialism. That made perfect sense back then. But it's not supported by the evidence. The evidence, in fact, is that the Neanderthals did a lot of the things that we think of as uniquely human. Like they made ornaments out of things like shells and feathers. They potentially had the capacity for some kind of language, although it might have been a relatively primitive thing. They created symbolic art. So they really weren't all that different than us. It's more like, we were more like cousins than distant ancestors. And as it turns out, kissing cousins. So, that's it for the Neanderthals. Basically, the Neanderthals lived in what's now Tuscany. And it's the Tuscan people who live on Tatooine, and it's the Tuscan people who have the most Neanderthal in them. So if you're some kind of crazy genetic racist, you could argue that the people of Tuscany are the most primitive. But that would lead to the fascinating conclusion that it's people from Africa who are the least primitive. Try arguing that in your next Klan rally. Anyhow, that's it for me for today, folks. Glad to share a little knowledge with you. I'll talk to you again tomorrow.